Here's a question nobody's really asking. What if the problem isn't the habit itself, but what it's quietly replacing in your life? I'm not here to tell you masturbation is bad. I'm not here to shame you or make you feel broken. And I'm definitely not here to preach about what's normal or excessive. I'm here to ask you something far more important. Are you choosing pleasure, or are you avoiding connection? Because here's what most conversations miss. The real danger isn't how often you masturbate. It's not even about addiction in the traditional sense. It's about what happens when instant gratification becomes easier than vulnerability, when a screen feels safer than a person, when the thought of truly connecting with someone, emotionally, physically, intimately, feels harder than just handling it yourself. That's the conversation we need to have. And if you've ever felt that tension, if you've ever chosen the easy release over the complicated human connection, stay with me. Because this video isn't about judgment. It's about understanding what you might be losing without even realizing it. Let's start with something most people don't admit out loud. Masturbation isn't just about physical release. It's about emotional regulation. Research shows that people turn to masturbation for dozens of different reasons: stress relief, boredom, curiosity, self-exploration. And yes, sometimes just pure desire. But here's where it gets complicated. For some people, it becomes the default response to rejection, to loneliness, to the fear of being vulnerable with another person. Think about it. Have you ever been rejected, romantically, sexually, emotionally, and turned to masturbation not because you were aroused, but because it felt like the only thing you could control? Have you ever felt the urge to connect with someone, but instead of reaching out, you just took care of it yourself? Because it was easier, because it didn't require courage, because you couldn't be rejected by your own hand. That's not wrong. That's human. But when that pattern repeats, when every moment of loneliness, every sting of rejection, every spark of desire gets channeled into solitary pleasure, something subtle but devastating starts to happen. You stop seeking people. Because why would you? You've trained your brain that relief doesn't require another person. That satisfaction is something you can generate alone. And slowly, without even noticing, the desire to connect with someone real begins to fade. Here's what's happening in your brain. When you masturbate, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in motivation, pleasure, and reward. It feels good. It's supposed to. But here's the catch. Dopamine doesn't just respond to pleasure. It responds to predictability. When you know you can feel good whenever you want, with minimal effort and zero risk, your brain starts to prefer that pathway. It becomes the most efficient route to relief. Real human connection? That's unpredictable. It requires effort. It involves risk, rejection, miscommunication, vulnerability, the possibility that the other person won't satisfy you or that you won't satisfy them. Your brain, wired for efficiency, starts to see that as unnecessary work. And over time, the neural pathways that once drove you toward intimacy, toward partnership, toward the desire to be with someone else, they weaken. You don't lose the ability to connect. You lose the motivation. Psychologists call this reward substitution. Your brain has found a shortcut, and once it finds a shortcut, it's incredibly hard to go back to the long route. But here's what they don't tell you. The shortcut doesn't just bypass effort. It bypasses meaning. Because masturbation, as natural and harmless as it is, will never give you what human connection gives you. It will never give you the feeling of being truly seen, of being wanted, of satisfying someone else and watching their response, of being held, of being chosen. It will never teach you how to navigate conflict, communicate needs, or grow through intimacy. It's pleasure without presence, release without relationship, and the more you rely on it, the more you forget what you're missing. Let me ask you something directly, and I want you to really think about this. When was the last time you felt a genuine, burning desire to be with someone? Not just sexually, but intimately. to connect, to be vulnerable, to let someone in. If you're struggling to remember, or if that desire feels distant, like something you used to feel but don't anymore, that's the warning sign. This is what I mean by the death of relational desire. It doesn't happen suddenly. It's not like you wake up one day and decide, I don't want connection anymore. It's gradual. It's a slow erosion. Each time you choose the easy release over the complicated connection, you're reinforcing a pattern. I don't need people. I can do this alone. And your brain believes you. So it stops pushing you toward others. It stops creating that ache for intimacy. It stops making you feel lonely in a way that motivates action. Instead, loneliness just becomes background noise. Something you manage with a habit. Something you silence instead of addressing. And here's the tragedy. People need people. You can satisfy your body alone, but you cannot satisfy your soul alone. Human beings are wired for connection, for touch, for being seen and known, for the vulnerability of letting someone else into your most private spaces, physically and emotionally. When you replace that with solitary pleasure, you're not just missing out on intimacy. You're missing out on growth, on challenge, on the kind of satisfaction that comes from truly being present with another person. If this is resonating with you right now, if you're realizing something you hadn't put into words before, leave a comment below. Even just to say, I hear this. You're not alone in this. And subscribing to this channel means you're choosing to stay in these conversations. We're building something here. Be part of it. Now let's talk about why this happens. Because understanding your motivation is everything. Not everyone masturbates for the same reason. And not every reason carries the same weight. Some people do it out of genuine desire. Their body is aroused and they respond. That's natural. That's healthy. But others reach for it because they've been rejected and it's the only way to feel desired again. They're lonely but too afraid to put themselves out there. They feel socially or psychologically pressured to keep up sexually. Even when there's no partner, they're avoiding the vulnerability required to truly be intimate with someone they've been hurt before, and masturbation feels safe in a way people don't. None of these reasons make you broken, but they do reveal something important. You're using pleasure to cope with pain. And coping is fine until it becomes your only strategy. Because here's the truth. Your reason for starting doesn't have to be the reason you stay stuck. Yes, maybe you were rejected. Yes, maybe you're lonely. Yes, maybe intimacy feels scary or exhausting or too risky. But those feelings, they don't go away by avoiding them. They don't heal through solitary pleasure. They heal through connection, through vulnerability, through finding someone who sees you and chooses you anyway. And the longer you avoid that path, the harder it becomes to walk it. So what's the alternative? I'm not going to tell you to stop masturbating. That's not the point. The point is to recognize when it's becoming a replacement instead of a release. And if you realize it has been, if you've been using it to avoid the hard, beautiful, messy work of connecting with another person, then it's time to shift. Here's what that looks like. 1. Acknowledge the pattern. You're not broken. You're human. You found a shortcut, and your brain took it. Now you're aware. That's the first step. 2. Challenge yourself to seek connection, even when it's uncomfortable. Reach out to someone you're interested in. Have a vulnerable conversation. Risk rejection, because that risk is where growth happens. 3. Reframe intimacy as something you build, not just something you experience. True satisfaction doesn't come from your body responding. It comes from learning how to satisfy someone else and letting them satisfy you. From communicating, from exploring together, from being truly present. 4. Remember that people need people. You are not meant to go through life alone. You are not meant to find all your comfort in solitary habits. You are meant to be seen, known, and chosen by another person. And they are meant to experience that with you. The satisfaction of shared intimacy, where you're focused on their pleasure and they're focused on yours, where there's communication, laughter, vulnerability, And presence, that's worth fighting for. That's worth the risk. Masturbation isn't the villain. Isolation is. The real danger isn't the habit. It's what the habit is keeping you from: connection, intimacy, vulnerability, and the kind of satisfaction that only comes from being truly present with another person. So if you've realized something today, if this has made you think differently, don't just sit with it. Act. Reach out to someone. Have a conversation. Take a risk. Because people need people. And you deserve to experience what it feels like to be chosen, to be wanted, and to share pleasure instead of just seeking it alone. If you made it to the end, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. You're not alone in this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.